A lot of people say they love music. I actually have only ever known one person who said they don't like music, and this was someone that I studied business with. She was actually an accounting major, so, well, that is what it is. But my relationship with music is a little bit different just because it started off as like a really, really passionate love for music. And then I began to study music. And it's not that I stopped loving it. It's that my life kind of changed as I pursued music as a career. But I wouldn't characterize my relationship with music as a love. I don't love music. It's just part of my everyday existence. So when I wake up in the morning, I get my coffee ready. And while it's getting ready, I sit on my couch, I meditate, and I listen to Debussy. And it's just the most wonderful start to the day possible. And I love Debussy especially because he has this way of composing where it's very exploratory and it doesn't really go any specific place. It kind of just meanders. And for me, that's really great for meditation because I can kind of let my mind wander, release those thoughts, and kind of just go with the flow. Music is really important to me. I still get emotionally moved by music, so when I hear a certain song at a certain time or place, it can really move me emotionally, and it brings me a lot of joy, but again, I just wouldn't characterize my relationship with music as love. My first memory of kind of being aware of or being into music was as a child, and my parents used to listen to all the rock and roll of the 1960s and 1950s, and it was really nice. I remember recording music on a radio station onto a cassette tape, and you'd have to time it where the radio announcer would say, "I'm playing this song," and then you'd hit record, and you try to get back-to-back recordings of songs that you really enjoyed and that you really liked, and that was, the way I grew up. And I remember one time over the holiday season, we were living in Texas, and my parents took me to Austin to see the Nutcracker Ballet. And I just remember sitting up in the balcony and being blown away with the beauty of it all. It was just kind of transcendent for me as a child, seeing these dancers, hearing this music and the choreography. It really overtook me. And I still remember it to this day as one of the earliest memories I have of coming into contact with the arts and really being moved powerfully by that. As I grew up, as I became a teenager, my parents got myself and my brother a guitar for Christmas one year. And so that was a fun point of my life where, I first started trying to play music and we learned all the chords and everything like that. I was really into 90s alternative rock and roll. So I would, my first CDs that I ever bought were like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, and Bjork of all things. So I was very much a child of the 90s. I was into grunge. I had a garage band where myself and my brother used to play with a friend and just jam out. My brother was an absolute virtuoso at guitar, so he just picked it up very, very naturally. He's left-handed, so he just flipped the guitar around and restrung it and just picked it up really, really quickly. I less so. I kind of struggled for the most part. But we had a lot of fun. It was really amazing. And so I just started exploring all the different musical genres that were out there. And I remember one time picking up a CD of opera, Luciano Pavarotti, singing a whole bunch of different arias. And I remember sitting in my car and listening to it, and it was a transcendent experience, kind of like when I saw the Nutcracker. It just overtook me in the beauty of this person's voice and how they could communicate across language and almost every other kind of way of communicating to reach me emotionally there where I lived and driving down the road. So it was a time where I took music much more seriously, and I decided that this was going to be my future career. And I started pursuing music as a professional career. And so as a young person, there's not always a lot of opportunities to perform music, at least there weren't in my area, and especially the kind of music that I wanted to perform, which was more classically oriented, more jazz. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunities for me to kind of get involved, especially since I wasn't any good. But I volunteered a lot. So I would volunteer at National Public Radio and for some music charities to kind of just be in that system, be part of that experience of making music. And I attended as many free concerts as I possibly could. Sometimes I attended paid concerts when I could afford it. But yeah, I just remember going to so many classical music concerts, sitting up in the highest tier and looking down at the orchestra, and they were all miniature size, and then also looking down on the sea of older people who were there to kind of preserve that art and who I got and that I got to enjoy. But realizing that, you know, what I wanted to do and the people I wanted to perform for weren't necessarily the same things. And when I was in university, I was just studying business and liberal arts, and I took every possible music elective that I could. It was everything from like music history to world music, and I took music lessons. I really tried to kind of just fill my life full of music. And I became absolutely obsessed with like old school jazz and blues, and really looking at the roots of a lot of these American styles, even gospel music, trying to understand where it all came from and why we have this kind of these forms of music. And then I got in that whole experience also got really into world music. And so I studied musics of China and Korea and Japan. And I know I'm characterizing these very generally because each culture has like many micro cultures of music that are very specific to a very specific region. But I really got into kind of seeing music from many different perspectives and trying to understand a bit more about this art form that we all kind of take for granted in a lot of ways. You know, we turn on the radio and bam, there's all the music we could ever want. We turn on the computer and we have every song to download and stream that we could possibly need. So it was a time period where I tried to appreciate as many different musical styles as possible and learn how to perform music. In doing so, I also got a chance to teach music, which was a lot of fun. You know, you kind of teach people who are one step behind you. After I finished my first undergraduate degree, I got a chance to travel to Milan, and I got a chance to study with a teacher who worked at La Scala. And this was a lot of fun because, first of all, La Scala is like the name when it comes to opera, kind of opera teaching and opera music. And to be able to study with a teacher at that caliber was really, really cool. And I learned a lot in the process, and I brought back all those lessons with me. And when I came back from that experience, I decided I really wanted to go to music school. And so I applied to a couple of different music schools. One of them I got in, the other one I got turned down. I actually got turned down from that one twice. But I ended up getting into one music school, and I was really excited because I was going there just to kind of test the waters and see what it is that they were going to do for me and how I could kind of contribute to that environment. And so when I started my first year in music school, it was blowing my mind because I was here now finally being able to achieve this dream I had for several years. And I remember some of the first classes they make you take are like music theory classes. And I remember being in my music theory class, and I had the best music theory professor in the entire universe. He was just amazing. He made what is, for a lot of people, a dry subject, music theory. He made it so engaging and so interesting and so fun. And I just loved it. I got so much joy out of going to music theory class. And so I would do all the lessons, and then I would do all the optional lessons. And I'm sure I was maybe one of the unique ones in that, you know, not everybody enjoyed music theory class, but I really got a lot of value out of it. And my music school was lucky enough to have had an orchestra, a set of orchestral instruments donated that were Balinese in origin. So these were not your traditional kind of violin, cello, viola instruments. These were instruments of what's called a gamelan. And I'm probably mispronouncing that horribly, but anyhow. And so when I found out that there was a group on campus that played gamelan and I could volunteer and contribute there, I jumped at the opportunity because this was kind of like, again, blowing my mind to have the opportunity to perform music that was from an entirely different culture, an entirely different musical system than what I was used to. And I really enjoyed it. I got to play with them for a number of years, and then I got to kind of lead the group for a little while. And it was really an opportunity in my life to kind of embrace this very, very different ways of thinking about an art form that at least I had only kind of had one approach or one mindset when it came to that kind of music. And so being able to perform in this different style, being able to be exposed to different musical genres, started opening my mind, and I started reading a lot about the origins of music and how tonality kind of emerged and how we kind of came to the musical systems and traditions that we have now, and the kind of default of like the kind of 12-note, scale system that we have now, that wasn't always the case, and that other cultures and other musical styles have different ways of tuning their instruments. And all of this kind of blew my mind because, again, it's kind of subverted all my expectations of what music was. And so I started studying like alternative musical tuning systems and alternative instrument styles, and it was so much fun. I got so much joy out of it. And when I would travel on occasion to Europe for holidays, I would always go to as many musical instrument museums as I could find and look at all of these really old musical instruments from the 1000 and 1500, and imagine what it must have been like to perform with those kinds of instruments, and some of them you look at and you wouldn't even know how to perform with them. But it was a lot of fun, and when I was studying music, I got to perform different musical theater works and opera, and so it was really a chance for me to kind of embrace that experience. Now, I won't say that I was some kind of stellar musician. Honestly, I was a vocalist, and my range is not great. It's, they say that most people have as many notes on the piano as you have fingers, so you have 10 notes. I think mine is kind of tops out around 8. If I really practice hard, I could squeeze out 9 or maybe even 10, but my range is really narrow. It leans a little bit deeper, but not deep enough that I can perform some of the really low works, and it's not high enough that I can perform any of the high stuff either. And my intonation is also not great either, so I'm frequently just a little bit off key or off pitch, and so, this is just kind of the experience I had studying music and kind of dealing with some of those challenges, I guess you could say. It was towards the end of my studies of music that I started getting into acting, and I got a theater scholarship, and I acted in a couple of plays, and that was really a lot of fun too. And it kind of connected some things I had done earlier in my career. When I first started getting into music, I started finding opportunities to perform in kind of local B-movie productions of this, that, or the other thing. So it was a nice experience. I had a wonderful time. And all that changed when I moved to Philadelphia and I started studying my master's degree. Now, I did perform in Philadelphia for a short period of time with the Philadelphia Symphony Choir, but at some point, I just became overwhelmed. I would work 8 or 9 hours every day from like 9 to 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night. I would immediately go to classes, so I took a lot of evening classes, and that would last maybe 2 or even 3 hours. And then from there, I would go downtown and rehearse for another 2 or 3 hours. So I was getting home close to midnight or even 1 a.m. and then having to get up and do it all over again. And there was a couple of challenges that I experienced during that time. One was just the grueling schedule. I mean, that in and of itself is a huge challenge. But the other was that I was going from such different worlds. I was working in technology at a university, and so that brought a certain kind of challenge to it. And then I would go and learn about like epidemiology in my master's degree. And then I would go and rehearse Wagner in the evening. So it was partly physically, it was grueling, but mentally also it became really taxing because these are just so different things to do. And they say that arts are the first thing to go. And for me, that was the juncture in my life that I broke with my work in music. And I think a lot of people regret changing their careers, or maybe they feel like they could have done something in an arts or a music career that they didn't get to do. But I'm very satisfied with having left music. I don't think that I was meant to be a musician, or at least not my whole career. I appreciate that having had the opportunity to pursue it. But I really love what I do now. And I have a piano, and actually that piano has a really interesting story because my partner and I ended up getting a free piano unexpectedly. We just went to check it out, and it was the middle of winter here in Oslo, and we just went to check it out, and the person who was kind of giving it away said, "Oh no, you can go ahead and take it if you want." And he had it on some kind of really janky contraption, and we wheeled it downhill for 100 meters or so, and it kind of fell apart. So I had to run to my workplace and get this big sturdy metal cart. I ran back, and it's snowing the whole time. We get the piano up on this cart, and we truck it another 1.5 kilometers, I think, to our apartment. And I just remember those last few steps getting it up into the apartment were just murder. So we have that piano. I play on it every now and again. I brought my guitars back from the US, and I play them now every now and again. And of course I sing whenever I'm happy or just feeling good about life. I guess the takeaway here is music is always going to be part of my life. I hope that it's part of yours as well. It's never gone away for me. But the thing that music really taught me more than anything else is appreciation for creativity. It is diligence when it comes to practicing your craft. And so my advice would be just sign up for some music lessons. If you've never taken music lessons or never played an instrument before in your life, I say go for it. It doesn't matter how old you are. Teach yourself if you would rather, not study under another person. Or just sing throughout your day, sing in the shower, whatever makes you happy. Learn how to compose music. I mean, that was something that was really fun for me and I really enjoyed. But the value that music or an art can bring to your life is absolutely immense, and it can really bring a lot of value to you.